Hello, and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Meet Addy. Chapter 4, Into the Night. The next night, after it was fully dark, with not a streak of orange or red in the sky, Auntie Lula and Uncle Solomon came to Addy's cabin. Addy and her mother were in their disguises with their kerchiefs packed. The well-worn clothes were baggy on them. Hester was sleeping on Addy's pallet. Uncle Solomon had 2 hats with him. One was a straw hat he had given Addy's mother, the other a felt hat he placed on Addy's head. "Now there's magic in your hat," Uncle Solomon said to Addy, trying to cheer her up. Addy did not feel like smiling. "Don't you believe this hat got magic?" Uncle Solomon asked. He snapped his finger near her left ear. "Why, look what's coming out your ear. You must forgot to wash behind it. Look at this half dime I found here." He handed the coin to Addy. Addy reached behind her ear. "How'd you do that?" she asked. "Shh," Uncle Solomon said. "It's magic. You hold on to that half dime. You're gonna need it where you going. Freedom costs, you hear me? Freedom's got its cost." "Come on, Solomon. They ain't gone all night," Auntie Lula said. Look here. I got some food and things for you," she said, handing Addy's mother a small sack. Addy's mother put the sack on her kerchief. Then she bent down to pick up Esther. Esther woke and began to fuss. Addy watched Mama as she hugged the baby hard and kissed her over and over. They searched Mama's face for tears, but there weren't any. Not outside, at least. Addy kissed Esther, too, and stroked her head. "Don't worry, Esther. We come back for her," she whispered softly as she handed her rag doll to the baby. "You hold on to Janie until I see you again," Addy said. Then her mother gave Esther to Auntie Lula. "We gotta take good care of Esther. Don't worry," Auntie Lula said, looking into the baby's eyes as she held her. "She's gonna be right here when you come back for her." Uncle Solomon gave Addy and Mom some final advice. "Go as fast as you can at night and hide during the day. Every time you see water, go through it. A creek or river, I don't care if it ain't nothing but a puddle, go through it. That way, you won't hardly leave no scent for the dogs to pick on. Watch out for them Confederate soldiers. They dressed up in gray uniforms. They can be mean as snakes, and if they catch you, they're gonna bring you back to slavery." "God be with you," Auntie Lula said, as Addy and her mother turned to leave the little cabin. Esther began to cry as they slipped out into the damp, warm night and ran into the woods. Addy looked to catch a final glimpse of her baby sister, but tears blurred her sight. The full moon shone in the eastern sky, looking like a half-time shining in the bottom of a well. At first, the moonlight shone through the tall pines, filling the forest with a silver light. Addy and her mother ran from shadow to shadow like a deer with her fawn. As they moved deeper into the woods, only a small glimmer of moonlight made its way through the thick branches of trees. There were dark, eerie shadows everywhere. It was hard to see. Mama took Addy's hand as they hurried along, stumbling over vines and stumps hidden by the darkness. Addy expected to hear the comforting night sounds of the crickets that she always heard in the cabin. But the deeper they got into the woods, the stranger the sounds became. Owls screeched high in the pines. The wind moaned like a wounded animal. Branches from sapling reached out for her, stinging her face as they slapped against her. A bat swooped down from the trees, its wings beating from the air just above their heads. Suddenly, a dark form stirred in the bushes ahead, moving toward them. Addy screamed and froze. Mama jerked to a stop and clamped her hand over Addy's mouth. "Hush up," her mother cried. Her mother whispered sharply. "You can't holler out." The bushes moved again. Addy's heart beat very fast. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. Slowly, Mama took her hand away from Addy's mouth. "It's only a possum or a skunk," she said calmly. Addy let out a sigh of relief. "Mama, I ain't mean to holler," she whispered. "We left Esther because her crying might give us away, but I hollered louder than Esther ever could." Addy remembered her father said about not always showing your feelings. She would have to learn to keep them inside sometimes. All throughout the night, Momma and Addy stumbled through the darkness. They waded through swampy places where their feet were stuck deep in oozing mud. They clawed through prickly vines. The thorns snatched at their clothes and dug into Addy's hands until they bled. Bare roots tore through the tough skin on the soles of Addy's feet. Once she stubbed her toe on a rock and fell down. But this time Addy did not cry out. All night long she and Momma pushed on and on. Just when Addy thought she could not go another step, the sky began to lighten. She could see Momma's face for the first time in hours. It was streaked with dirt. She touched her own face and felt dry blood on her cheek from a cut below her eye. "We better stop soon, Momma," Addy said. "It's getting light out and somebody might see us." "You right," Momma said. "We need to look for a hiding place." They went a little farther and found a small cave. They crowded inside it, huddled together, waiting for sleep to come. When they woke hours later, it was hot. Mosquitoes buzzed around their heads, drawn to the stickiness of their sweaty skin. Addy slapped at them, but it was no use. "You must be hungry," Momma said, reaching into her bundle. She handed Addy a piece of Auntie Lula's cornbread. It was hard and dry, but it tasted good to Addy. She washed it down with a drink of water from the gourd. When they finished eating, Momma reached into her bundle again. "I got something for you," she said. Addy watched eagerly as Momma opened her hand. In her palm was a small, shiny shell. "I want you to have this," Momma said. "It's something me and your papa have been saving for you." This cowrie shell belonged to Papa's grandma. She was stole from Africa when she was no bigger than you. None of her family was on the ship with her when she came here across from the water. She wore this shell on a necklace. Your papa was going to give it to you when you was older, but I think you should have it now, Addy. Your great-grandma's name was a duke. The name got a meaning where she come from. It means much loved. I saved her name for you, Addy." Addy was silent for a moment. Then she looked into her Momma's gentle brown eyes. "Momma, can I hold the shell tonight?" "Sure you can. I got something special for you to put it on," her mother said, putting a leather string out of her bundle. "Momma, that's one of Sam's shoelaces. I wanted you to have something of his, too." Her mother said. She pulled the cord through a small hole in one end of the shell, knotted it, and then put it around Addy's neck. "Remember what I told you about the love you need to carry in your heart. It ain't nothing you can't touch like this shell. When you find yourself feeling sad or scared, you dip into that love, Addy. It's a well with no bottom, and it can give you strength and courage." Addy rubbed the shell between her fingers. Its round top was smooth as soap. The flat underside was also smooth, except for the middle where the shell closed in on itself. Then it felt like the teeth of a fine comb. "My great-grandma must have thought I was brave enough to cross the water all alone. I gotta be brave just like she was." "She was brave, Addy," Momma answered, "and you brave too. Well, there's one thing different about you and your great-grandma. Her journey ended in slavery. Yours, girl, is taking you to freedom." They sat in silence for a long time, looking at the cowrie shell and thinking about someone they had never met. Then Addy spoke. "Momma, do you think Esther's gonna remember us?" "That ain't easy to say. Babies don't remember much, but I got a feeling Auntie Lula won't let her forget," Momma said. As Addy and Momma settled down in the cave to wait for the sunset, Addy pictured Esther back on the plantation. She would be asleep now, curled up with Janie. Maybe she would be thinking about Addy. When night finally came, Addy and Momma started out again. The moon lit their way until they reached the end of the woods, where they saw a flat darkness ahead of them. Then, before they could see water, they heard the rushing sound of it. They had come to a wide river. This got to be the water near the Gifford plantation that Papa was talking about. Addy whispered. We gotta cross it, Mama said, her voice sounding scared. We better stuff our hats and things in our pocket. They stood on the bank of the river for a few moments, afraid to enter the foaming, angry water. Sam had taught Addy how to swim, but this water looked dangerous, and Mama didn't know how to swim at all. Holding each tight to each other, they started into the water together. Addy picked her way along the squishy bottom, her feet slipping on the slimy rocks that were stuck in the mud. Once she tripped on a rock, losing her balance and pulling Mama with her. Addy felt her mother's grip tighten around her and realized again how frightened Mama was. Pulling themselves up, they started making their way to the center of the river. There, the current started to pull at them. It lifted them off the bottom and dragged them sideways. Hard as they tried to walk against it, the water was stronger than they were. They pushed farther and farther away from shore. Addy could hear Mama sputter as water filled her mouth and nose. Mama, keep your head up, Addy yelled as loud as she dared. Just don't go under. Suddenly, a huge swell of water rushed against them, pulling Mama's hand from Addy's, dragging her away. Addy turned just in time to see her mother disappear beneath the churning water. Addy wanted to scream, but she kept it inside. Instead, she drew in air, filling her lungs, and dove underwater. She struggled against the current, trying to stay close to the place where Mama had disappeared. She couldn't see a thing in the dark water. She felt around for Mama. She found nothing. Addy's lungs began to burn. She was running out of air. Popping above the water, she looked around frantically. Mama, she called, gulping for air. Where are you at? Afraid no answer would come, she dove down again. This time, she let the current push her while she dragged her arms through the water, searching for her mother. Suddenly, Addy was stopped by a fallen tree under the water. She groped among the branches, but their sharp ends jabbed and poked her. She kicked furiously to get away from. Suddenly, her foot hit something soft. It was Mama, trapped in the branches. Addy braced herself against a large limb, grabbed Mama, and then pushed off the tree with all her strength to bring both of them to the surface. Gasping for air, the two struggled to the far shore. Clutching each other, they finally reached the shallows where the water calmed. Exhausted and breathless, they fell on the riverbank. When Addy could finally talk, she whispered, Mama, is you all right? You saved me, Addy, Mama said weakly. You're a brave girl. Addy was shivering as she and her mother got up slowly and made her way to the woods. Her wet clothes stuck to them. Mama had lost her kerchief and her hat was ripped. Addy pulled her own hat from her pocket. Other than being wet, it was fine. She pulled it down tight on her head and thought, maybe it was a lucky hat. She reached to see if her cowrie shell was still around her neck. It was there, and something else looked too. It was a wet leech. When she peeled it off, Addy realized it was a leech. Ugh. She shuddered and quietly flicked it away. Addy and her mother traveled for hours before Mama spotted a railroad track. Addy had never seen tracks before. They were shining silver, and they were pointing north to freedom. These got to be the tracks your father talked about, Mama whispered. We got to be extra careful here. There ain't hardly a place to hide. They had no one since they started their escape. The tracks meant a train could come at any time. Travelers might spot them. They could trust no one. Addy and her mother followed the path of the tracks in the moonlight. When the noises of the night were gone, the bird songs began to fill the air. They found a thick clump of pines near a curve in the tracks. Gathering dead branches and brush, they made a shelter and crawled inside. Addy could barely keep her eyes open. She was too tired to slap at the ants that crawled on her legs or swat at flies buzzing around her head. She curled up and rested her head on her mother's chest. I'm real proud of you, Mama whispered as she gently stroked Addy's hair away from her face. Addy smiled. She could feel her mother's heart beating. It was a soothing sound. And that's the end of that chapter. See you later. Bye.